Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are right at 8:30. We are going to go ahead and call the meeting to order here. If you could find your way to your seats. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Brian, and I'm an alcoholic. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday here at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. That's 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, PA. The food and the fellowship for this group starts every week at 8 o'clock, so feel free to join us early, enjoy the refreshments, the coffee we put out. If you want to become involved with this service with this group, even better. You can see me, see any home group member after the meeting. The purpose of there's a business meeting for this group that meets every Saturday, 7 p.m. to 7:30. So again, if you want to get involved, feel free to show up early. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God, reliance, and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone that's new at this meeting for the first time, visiting from out of town, that would like to introduce themselves on a first name basis? Yes? Yeah. Parents. Welcome. Anybody else in the back there, yeah? Paul. Welcome. Anybody else? We got everybody? The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with a working knowledge of the 12 steps and who is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. We got thank you for your service. So we got plenty of people willing to sponsor. If you are new, grab one of those people after the meeting. There'll be a whole group of us breaking down the meeting. I always say we'd love to talk with you, get you some phone numbers, some meeting lists, get you involved in the solution a little bit. Are there any announcements from the floor for the good of AA? Anybody have anything going on? Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Nick, I'm an alcoholic. According to 7 tradition, there's a QR code on the back there, or come see me, and you can scan my QR code and I'll bring it back.
There we go. Yeah, go ahead, Gary. Yeah.
I'm Gary, I'm an alcoholic. This Monday night, 6 p.m. is the Stay Alive Literature Step meeting at 6 p.m. All are welcome to come.
Thank you very much, Gary. Anything else? Yeah, back there, yeah. Cody.
I'm on a committee for young people, and there's actually a campout going on pretty close to here. So if you want any information about that, please let me know.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you, Cody. Anybody else have anything going on? A couple announcements from this group. This group does have a sister group, which is a big book study meeting. It meets every Thursday at 7:30, just up the road here at Salem UCC Church. That's 186 East Court Street in Doylestown, PA. And the coffee for that meeting is on at 6:15. So again, feel free to show up early, join us, enjoy. We usually have refreshments out there too as well. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs, for those who cannot afford them, can put their donations in that jar on the back table marked big book and CD donations. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a YouTube channel called the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. We post all our speakers from this meeting on there. It's a good resource to have. You come here, you hear a message that you think someone could benefit from. You can share it on YouTube with them. We also have a Facebook page. We post all of our upcoming speakers on there. Any events, workshops we might have going on. Other groups will post their anniversary celebrations. So I always say it's a good resource to have to stay tied in with happenings in AA throughout the area. And with that, I'm going to bring my friend Thomas up here. Thomas is going to read our Just for Today Prayer of Recovery. Help me give a warm welcome to Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Thomas, and I'm an alcoholic. And welcome home. This is the Just for Today Prayer of Recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And with that, we're going to be bringing up Kara to read the preamble. Please help me give her a warm welcome.
Hello, y'all. My name's Kara, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. Welcome home. The AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Now I'm going to ask my dear friend Michelle to come up and read the 12 Steps of Recovery. Let's give her a warm welcome. Woo!
She's a hard act to follow. Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. And these are the 12 steps of recovery. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. I guess that's an important one. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I'd like to bring Brian back up.
Okay, this group does have a 7th tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'll see that the basket makes its way around. There's no dues or fees for AA membership, but we do have expenses, and your contributions do help us to cover the cost of food, rent, big books, workshops, and the likes, so we do appreciate it. There's absolutely no smoking on the church property. It's the church's policy. We got a good working relationship with the church. We get to come here, have this meeting in this beautiful facility every week, and they really just ask that we keep the premise clean, so be considerate of that as you're coming and going from the meeting. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now to introduce our speaker for tonight, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group on loan to us from the Devon Saturday Morning Group. Please help me welcome Ed S.
My name's Ed. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Ron for reaching out, asking me to speak. I met Ron. He's not going to remember, but I met him years ago in a meeting somewhere around here, and he took some CDs out of the trunk of his car and gave them to me. And I had them in my car for a long time before I listened to them, you know? And then I listened to them and I'm like, these are amazing. So I just always remember Ron reaching into his trunk and like, I got something for you. It's nice to be here, and it's just like such a warm welcome coming through the doors, you know? This is a fantastic group. I love your purpose. I just love it when it gets distilled like that, you know? Like, we're here to, I mean, the name of the group, Conscious Contact. And through the steps, consistent message. Yeah, I just love all of it. And I was doing a little, trying to calm down before I came over here. It's been a little while since I spoke. I've spoken a lot. I turned 38 last month. So I've spoken a lot over the years, but for whatever reason, I just haven't spoken a lot recently. So I was getting a little hyped up and broke out a pad and a pen and just started, you know, writing. Just started writing. Just get it out on a page. And yeah, I you know, what really comes up for me is like, lack of power is my dilemma. Me on my own power, it's not really much of a life worth living. And I proved that. My drinking career was relatively short. It's probably about 10 years. And I took full advantage of those 10 years. And first time I drank, our next door neighbor was having a wedding reception. Their daughter had gotten married. So I was over there and they had bottles of champagne all over the place. And they were out on this like kind of catering table. And there was an ice bucket in the corner of the table. And I saw all these like mostly drank bottles of champagne with about this much in the bottom of them. So I started taking those bottles and combining it into one glass and then hiding some of the bottles behind the ice bucket to make it look like they were empties. And this was the first time I ever drank. I intuitively knew to stash. I intuitively knew there wasn't going to be enough. I intuitively, hid those bottles. I drank that stuff down. I went back downstairs playing ping pong with the other kids. At some point in the evening, I started not feeling too well. So I go out to the side yard. I projectile vomit. My retainer came flying out of my mouth. And I stagger home, because like I said, we live next door, and I stagger home. I lie down on the couch and watch the Carol Burnett show. And I thought, what a small price to pay for that much freedom. That was my thought. Not like that was a terrible, experience or anything. It was like, what a small price to pay for that much. I'll get sick like that every time if I can feel like that. And since coming to this program, I've learned normal drinkers don't care for that. I see people, my sister's one of them. We grew up in the same family, same influences, but I've got that physical allergy and she doesn't. And she has a glass of wine. Even if she finishes it, after she's done, she's like, I don't want another one, I'm starting to feel it. So I don't know what she's feeling, but what I feel when I take in alcohol makes me want more. And there is not enough. And I'm that alcoholic they talk about in the big book. Once I put alcohol into my system, I can no longer control how much I take after that. If that were my only problem, I just would put the plug in the jug and I'd be fine. I wouldn't need you guys. I wouldn't need to come to AA, right? Just don't drink. But I have a mind that will eventually lead me back to that drink. And I also have a mind that will create a spiritual malady in me that will make me drink before too long on my own power. Like the way I think, I heard Clancy out in Los Angeles describe it as a spring. It's like I have a spring in me. And I get away from meetings, I get away from you guys, I get away from the steps, I get away from the program, and I just stay with this for too long. That spring inside of me just gets tighter, 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 and tighter. And alcohol used to let that spring out. And then you take away the alcohol, what do I have that's going to let that spring out? And it's like, thank God you guys didn't just take away the alcohol. You're like, here's the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that will allow you not to drink a day at a time. And I just heard, I have very few original thoughts. A lot of what I say is just stuff I've heard. other people say. I heard a woman say recently, she goes, I have a spiritual malady, and it creates an obsession to get out of it. It creates a mental obsession to like, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to get out of how I'm feeling? And it doesn't matter. Nothing bad needs to be happening out here. Just me between these two ears, will create enough distress that I'm going to need relief. And it's either going to be spirits or it's going to be spiritual. But it's got to be one or the other. It's got to be a spiritual solution. And I can't have spirits anymore. So went to Conestoga High School, right down the street here, about a half an hour away in Wayne, Pennsylvania. And I thought my drinking was like all the other kids, keg parties, running through the woods, ha ha ha. I just thought I was doing what everybody else was doing. One of my best friends in high school, his dad died suddenly of a heart attack. And his mom knew what we were all up to, driving around town and partying and, in the car and stuff like that. And she was afraid for us, and she opened up her basement. She said, I'd rather know where you guys are. So she kind of opened up her basement to us, and we had a refrigerator down there, we had beer, and we had pot, and we had mattresses. This is high school. We had mattresses on the floor and leaning against the wall. And I remember it was a school day. It must have been a lunch break because we had an open campus so we could come and go. And I remember being down in that basement and, sitting on a mattress with my back against another mattress, completely out of it, just thinking, how am I going to keep this going? How am I going to keep this? This is all I want to do. I want to feel like this all the time, but I wasn't paying for it. After high school or college, if I was lucky enough to get in, no one was going to foot the bill for that. So it was like, I had this panic, which is like, this is all I want to do. This is all I'm good for. How am I going to keep this going? So luckily, I did get into a college, which put it off for another 4 years. And I joined a fraternity, and I had my face under a keg for 4 years, and I barely graduated. And I went from being a kid in high school, or I should say junior high, before I found, alcohol and pot. I cared about grades, I cared about sports, I cared about how I performed. And then once I found alcohol, I'm like, I don't need it. I got this. And all that stuff went by the wayside. I'm not going to go out for the team. And then, I couldn't be drunk every day in high school, but we'd smoke pot like 3 times a day. So I was like stoned all day in high school. I didn't even like pot. I love alcohol. I didn't even like pot, but I just wanted out of me. So I go to college, 4 more years of the same thing. I somehow graduate from there, which is a total indictment on our educational system. Or my ability to just get by. And I've read a couple Bill Wilson biographies, and there's this part in one of them where he talks about, I'll show them. Because I was starting to have my friends say to me, he's got a lot of potential, And these were like my alcoholic friends. But they're like shaking their head at me and they're going, well, he's got a lot of potential. But so I had this chip on my shoulder after college, and I was like, I'll show them. And that's something I know Bill Wilson had. And I decided to move up to New York City to chase a career, figuring if I could get the outsides looking the way I needed them to look, then I could do whatever I wanted. And all would be well if I could just get, fix my insides from the outside. So I move up to New York City, and I'm chasing my career, but my alcoholism goes with me. And I'm showing up for things hungover that, I absolutely had to have. If you had asked me, it's like, oh man, I got to get this job, but I would show up hungover. My alcoholism didn't care what I wanted. And I remember being in a class, and talking to this young woman. And I said to her, I said, you know, I had this interview on Wednesday, and I got really wasted over the weekend. But I feel like, you know, and then I had this interview on Wednesday and it really didn't go well. And I feel like getting wasted over the weekend had something to do with that interview not going, but I don't know how that could be, because that was the weekend and now it's Wednesday. So I was starting to put together how alcohol was affecting me between drinks. You know what I mean? Like my life was just not going well. And I heard somebody else say in a meeting one time, I'm a power driver without power. You know, we're all power drivers, right? We're all like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to get where I want to go, but we don't have power. And so I'm starting to, you know, it's really starting to affect my life. It's totally affecting what I'm trying to do and what I want. And, you know, I'm telling her this, like, I don't get it, how this interview could be impacted by how drunk I got on Saturday. And she said, I don't know, Grant. She was at my second AA meeting. And I saw her and I said, why didn't you say something? She goes, it's not for me to say. It's not for me to say. And real quick story about how I found you guys. I was supposed to visit a friend of mine. He had bought a house in upstate New York on the Hudson River. He had a girlfriend named Jessie. I had met her once. I was working on Saturday. I had Saturday night off, and then I was supposed to work on Sunday, and then take the train up to New York, up New York to see my friend. And so I got Saturday night off. I hop a bus to Avalon, New Jersey. I do what I do down there, 3.5-hour bus ride. I meet up with all my friends from high school down there, doing what we do down there. I said I had to be at work on Sunday, back up in Manhattan, so I said, well, I better not go to sleep. So I just stayed up all night, got on a bus 8 o'clock in the morning, down in Avalon, 3.5-hour bus ride back up to New York City, kind of trying to, you know, with my face pressed against the cold window, trying to, you know, get a little bit of sleep. And I get up there at 11:30, fell asleep again in my apartment, managed to wake up for work, get in there at 2 o'clock, managed to make it through work. Work is over, I'm supposed to get on that train to go visit my friend. Instead, I go home, have a hair of the dog that bit me, passed out. No train ride, no phone call to my friend, nothing. Wake up on Monday morning. So I got to make that phone call, why I didn't show up. So I call him and I get his fiancee, Jessie, who, like I said, I met once. And I said, Jessie, I'm so sorry. I know I was supposed to call you from the train station. I did, you know, my little brother at home outside of Philadelphia has a drinking and a drug problem. And it was a real family emergency, and my parents called me, and I needed to get back there right away. I completely forgot to call you. I'm so sorry. This lie that I completely came up with. And she's on the other end of the phone going, that's okay, Ed. I hope he's okay. And halfway through this lie that I'm completely getting away with, this is God working in my life. Halfway through this lie that I'm completely getting away with, and I had lied to so many other people who were so much closer to me than this woman I met once. I say to her, I said, you know what? I'm lying to you. I said, I drank last night and I couldn't make it up. And there was a pause on the other end of the phone, and she goes, that's okay. She goes, you know, I go to AA. And I went, AA? Whoa. You know, pump the brakes. And all I knew about AA was there was a meeting down the street from the apartment I was living in. They met on Friday nights. I used to go, it was off of a park. I used to go running around that park on Friday nights because, you know, I was such a health nut. You know, before I was going to go out drinking that night. And I remember running around that park, and, you know, the meeting was in a church. It had a stone archway, and it must have been a break in the meeting because they were standing outside with styrofoam cups, and there was like a yellow light bulb, and they're standing out there, and they're talking, and I'm running around that park going, I think that's an AA meeting. And then my next thought was, those poor people, they'll never be able to drink again for the rest of their life. I thought that was the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody. So that's all I knew about AA. And she goes to me, AA. And I said, no. I said, and I whip out my reasons as to why I'm not an alcoholic. You know, like it talks about in the big book, you know, we tried this, we tried wine, so we tried beer, and then we tried rum, and then we moved here, and then we got rid of her, and then we, you know. So I had all these reasons saved up as to why I wasn't an alcoholic, because I was always trying to prove to myself I wasn't an alcoholic. I've since discovered that normal people don't worry about whether or not they're alcoholics, and they don't try to prove to themselves they're not. But that was a major mission for me, and I remember one time I lost a job directly because of my drinking, and I didn't drink for 3 weeks. And I was so shattered and ashamed and remorseful about losing that job that I didn't drink. I said, I'm not going to drink again until I get another job. And 3 weeks later, I got another job. And you know what I did after that, right? Right back to it. But I had those 3 weeks. I had those 3 weeks I could point to, right? See, I could take it or leave it alone. And I stopped many times when I was out there. Always went back. Couldn't stay away. So I tell her that. I tell her my story about, you know, why I'm not an alcoholic. And she listens. And then this woman ends up being my Eskimo. And, you know, you don't choose your Eskimo. And she goes, I have a cocaine problem. And she goes, I still do cocaine about once every 2 months. But I go to these AA meetings so that maybe I won't do it at all, because it's not how often I do it, it's how it makes me feel afterwards. And that was my first experience of one alcoholic talking to another. No one had ever had words for that, you know, the day after, you know, waking up and wanting to spit in the mirror and hating myself and hating my life, you know, all around alcohol. And in that one sentence, she was like, it's not how often I do it, it's how it makes me feel afterwards. And that was my first experience of one alcoholic talking to another. And she goes, look, I have a friend who lives in the city, and I'll just give you her number. And if you want to call her, you can. And that number sat on my coffee table for 2 weeks, and I kept meaning to throw it out. And I don't know what happened over those 2 weeks, but 2 weeks later, I call this woman, and this complete stranger meets me at the Upper West Side YMCA on a weekday. At 12:30 on 63rd Street, and walks me into my first AA meeting. Her name was Lee. If I walked by her today, I would walk right by her. I haven't seen her since, and she completely changed my life. Walked me into my first AA meeting. Complete stranger. And when before we went in, I said, now, I'm not going to have to say anything, am I? And she said, no, just sit and listen. So we go in, this meeting is packed, hundreds of people. And we sit down, and I'm listening to the speaker. And I had that, I don't know if it's rare, but I had that experience where I just was identifying. I'm like, oh my God. This guy knows what's wrong with me. Like, I don't even know what's wrong with me. But this guy knows what's wrong with him, and I have what he has, and he knows what's wrong with me. And this place has a solution. Like, I somehow intuitively knew all of that, listening to my first AA speaker, just listening to him tell his story. And he said this one thing, it's great in the middle of it, because I was just a knotted ball, you know, of self-will. They talk about the juggernaut of self-will in the big book, and I was just a knotted ball of fear and resentment, and this guy used this analogy. He goes, you know, it's like I'm in the car with God, and God's driving the car, and I'm in the passenger seat. And he goes, and when I let that be the arrangement, the car goes right down the road. The car goes just right smooth down the road. I get to where I want to go, and he goes, but I get uncomfortable with that arrangement. So I lean over from the driver's seat, and I grab the steering wheel, and the car goes all over the road like this. And he goes, and then when I get uncomfortable with that, I give up the steering wheel again, and I get back in my seat, and then the car goes straight down the road. And I go, what a concept. What a concept. This idea of like a God or a higher power in your life on a daily basis that you can trust and it's going to help you live your life. It's going to live your life for you, because I was so ready for anything to live my life other than me. I was ready. I didn't know I was ready, but I heard that speaker and I was ready. And I wanted what he had. So he finishes speaking, and then the sharing starts, and before that, they said, "Is anybody here for the first time?" And the woman elbowed me. And I looked at her and I said, "You said I wouldn't have to say anything." And she goes, just say you're here for the first time. So I raised my hand. I said, "I'm Ed. I'm here for the first time." Thunderous applause. And I wanted to just crawl in the ground. And so they start calling on people for sharing, and people are sharing, and it's the end of the meeting, and he said, "Well, we got time for one more. You, new guy, would you like to share?" Exactly. And I went, "Me?" And they went, "Yeah, would you like to say something?" And I thought to myself, these people putting me on the spot like this, man. I'm gonna give them both barrels. I said, "Well, frankly," I said, "I don't know what I'm doing here, because I don't think I'm an alcoholic." The whole room burst out laughing. Just loudest laugh I've ever heard. They got up, thunderous applause. They get up, grab hands, they're grabbing my hand, they're saying the serenity prayer. "Keep coming back, it works if you work." And I'm like, where is the door? Luckily, Lee and her friends grab me, right? They take me out to coffee after the meeting. They debrief me, they talk me down, And that started my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. It gets me choked up, because people just cared more about me than I cared about myself. And I've had sponsors all along the way that cared about me more than they cared about my feelings. I always had the sponsor who was like, I'm like, "I'm going to drink." He's like, "Fine, drink. Go ahead and drink. I'm not going to drink." And I just, these people in AA this woman who met me in front of my first meeting and walked me in, and what we do for each other. And I got 20 days. Wouldn't give up people, places, and things, right? So I'm counting days, and I'm still going to parties with my old friends, and I get 20 days and I drink, I get 55 days and I drink, then I get 9 months and I drink. And I go, the problem is, I'm in New York and I need to be in Los Angeles. Thank you for laughing. Because it's gonna be better for me out there. And they have AA out there, I'll be fine, but I need to be in Los Angeles. And I had like 7 days. So luckily you guys got a hold of me. You guys in AA got a hold of me, and you were like, "Ed, right now you've got 7 days worth of stuff on your tray to offer those people in Los Angeles. Wouldn't you rather have 90 days worth of stuff on your tray to offer those people?" And I'm thinking, yeah, 90 days worth of stuff would be better than 7 days. Now, I didn't know what tray they were talking about, and I didn't know what the stuff on the tray was. All I heard was, you got a better chance of getting what you want if you get your 90 days. You guys knew exactly how to talk to me. Because I was all about fixing the insides from the outsides, and I'm going to get what I want out there, and it's going to make me feel the way I want to feel, and then I won't have to drink. And they have AA out there, and so I'm counting my days in New York City before I'm going to go to LA, and I'm at a place called the 79th Street Workshop, and I hear this guy with an English accent, and he's sharing from the floor, and he goes, I promised myself by the time I turned 55, I would have a Bentley. And he said, and when I turned 55, I was riding my bike down the street, and it wasn't my bike, it was a borrowed bike, and I had just gotten out of rehab, and the sun was coming through the trees, and it was a beautiful fall day, and I'd never been happier in my life. And I'm there, and I'm all dressed in black, and I'm, like I said, I'm a ball of resentment and fear, and this guy's saying he's happy without the Bentley. Well, I want to find out why. So I go up, and he's a charismatic guy. He's like James Bond, you know. And I go up and I ask him to sponsor me, knowing full well in 45 days I'm going to be leaving. So he starts meeting me at this place called the Green Kitchen, which is a diner on the Upper East Side for fun and for free. And he starts asking me things like, hey, Ed, you know, are you willing to go to any lengths to stay sober? And I say to myself, yeah. You know, I'm thinking for the next 45 days or whatever. And then I'll take what he gives me, put it on the tray, and go out to California. And then he has me to dinner at his apartment, and his wife's cooking dinner. 5th floor walk up. And I'm up there, and just like the girl on the phone, right, where I said, I'm lying to you, out of my mouth comes, by the way, I should tell you, I really appreciate all this help you're giving me, but I'm going to be leaving in 45 days, but, you know, I sure appreciate all this help you're giving me. And he goes, I don't want you to go anywhere for a year. And I went, no, you don't understand. I've completely drank my life away. I've completely messed up my life, and that's going to fix it, so I really need to go. I can't waste any more time. I understand. You keep doing things your way, and you keep drinking. And then he said the magic words for me, and he said, I wasn't expecting. He goes, if you put this program first, everything else will take care of itself better than you can do it. And I just broke. You know, all that resistance, all that, I like surrendered in that moment. He just broke me down with that one sentence. If you put this program first, everything else will take care of itself better than you can do it. And I was so out of plans. You know, the Ed plan, I was out of plans. Changing deck chairs on the Titanic. And everything in me was like, do not agree to what this guy is saying. And out of my mouth came, okay. And I started counting days again, you know. And, or I was already counting days, but I made the commitment to stay in New York for a year. And he would say things to me like, make your life a sobriety sandwich. I'm like, what's that? And he goes, make your life be what happens between meetings. Go to a meeting in the morning. That's when I started going to 7:15 a.m. meetings. And he goes, and I was completely unemployed, by the way. I had nowhere to go. And he said, go to a morning meeting. Go have breakfast with alcoholics. Go tell them what you're going to do that morning. Go do what you have to go do what you have to do that morning. Go to a lunch meeting. Go have lunch with alcoholics. Tell them what you did that morning. Go tell them what you got to do that afternoon. Go do what you have to do that afternoon. Go to a dinner meeting. Go have dinner with alcoholics. Tell them what you did that day. Tell them, you know, go home, you'll be sober. And he was just trying to get me out of God's way. Get me out of my way. And 9 months into that year, I got a job that took me out to where I wanted to go, which nobody promised me. The steps didn't promise me that. AA didn't promise me that. That's just what happened. I surrendered, and that's just what happened. And so I get this job that's going to take me out to California, and he goes, you're doing a 4-step before you go. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I'm up all night, like I'm back in college, and I hadn't done my homework, and I'm writing this 4-step, and he shows up on a Saturday morning with his coffee all chipper, and we sit down to do the 5th step, and I'm reading it to him, and he goes, okay, can you see where you start out with this, you start out hating this person, you start out with this resentment. And this is the 2nd column, this is why. And the 3rd column, this is what it affects in you. And the 4th column, you know, do you see where you're selfish? You're self-seeking, you're dishonest, and you're afraid. And if you weren't those things, you would not resent this person. Do you see that? And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't see it at all. But I was like, gotta do this, gotta check the box before I go to California, and it's all gonna be great out there. And it's amazing how quickly I gave up, you know, the AA plan for my own plan. Like when he said, you know, you put this program first, everything else will take care of itself better than it did. So I did my 4th step, I did that 5th step, I go out to California. I noticed one thing when I got out there. This ex-girlfriend of mine who I had in college, who was in that 4th step, I had resented her every day. Every morning I woke up thinking about her. I resented her every day. And I'm out there for a month or two, and I suddenly realized I hadn't even thought about her. And I'm like, maybe it was that 4-step thing. Maybe it was that 4th and 5th step thing. Oh well. But now I had this job, right? And this job became my higher power. And it's like, I got to show up for this job. And I'm going to meetings out there, but they're different. They're different than New York City. And I don't know anybody. And I'm getting there late and I'm leaving early because I don't want to talk to anybody because I got this job now, you know? And the exact opposite of what I was doing. And I'm going to one meeting a week and I'm getting there late and I'm leaving early and I'm not talking to anybody. And I'm focusing on that job. And I did that for 4 or 5 years. And at 5-6 years of sobriety, with everything on the outside, I was sure was going to fix it. I'm ready to drink again. I am a walking, dry alcoholic. I am full of resentment. I'm full of fear. It's getting worse and worse. It's not going anywhere. Hadn't done any inventory work since I did that 9th step with my sponsor. So I asked this guy to sponsor me, and he goes, how long you been around? I said, 6 years. This guy's name was Clint. He was in the Pacific Group out in Los Angeles. And Clint Hodges, he's not with us anymore, but he said, how long you been around? I said, 6 years. He said, I'm going to assume you have the first 3 steps, but I want you to do an inventory for me. I said, fine. I did this like biblical inventory, long inventory. I go over to his apartment on a Saturday morning to share it with him. And he was an attorney, and I said, by the way, can I run something by you? I'm having a work problem. He said, okay. And I said, well, my employers did this to me, so I did that. And then they did this to me, so that I did that. And he goes, He goes, you're insane. And I said, no, you're not hearing me. They did this to me, so I had to do that. And then they did this to me, so I had to do that. And he said, no, he said, you've got the job of your lifetime and you resent them for it. You resent the people who gave you this job. He said, I'm not listening to this 4-step. It's this long. And I'm like, what? He said, I'm sending you to another guy. It's a guy I go to. And you're starting at step 1. So I go knock on this guy's door, and this is how desperate I was. And he took me through the book, line by line, listening to these tapes that he made. Some of you might know Joe H. in Santa Monica, and he made these tapes from a Salvation Army talk he did, and it was taking the group through the steps in a weekend. And I'd go home, he'd give me the first assignment, doctor's opinion. He said, okay, the physical allergy, you can't put alcohol in your body. That's the doctor's opinion to the top of page 23, line by line. That were your only problem, you put the plug in the jug, but you got an alcoholic mind. That's page 23 to 43. Spiritual malady, right? You pick up a drink, doesn't matter how good things are out here, how bad, you're going to pick up that drink because you got a spiritual malady that needs treating. That's page 44, 45, and 52. So we went through the book like that. He gave me an assignment, I go home and do it, go back to him the next day, go over the assignment, give me the next assignment. Then we get up to the inventory, and I'm writing the inventory. And then we do a fear inventory. And I write out all these fears, and he says, let's boil them down to 15 or 20. So we did, and he said, now I want you to write the opposite of each one of those fears. So I had fear of being alone, fear of being in a committed relationship, fear of not working, fear of working, fear of dying, fear of living. And I'm like, why am I afraid of all these things that I think I want? And he goes, because you know you don't have the power to sustain it. He said, you know you don't have the power. You don't believe God has the power. So you're stuck on the fence. And you're afraid of everything. And because it's true. It's like I didn't trust God, and I sure didn't trust me. And that really showed me, it's like, wow, I need a God I can trust. I need a power that I can turn my will and my life over to, that's going to run my life better than it's going to live my life through me better than I can do it, to be of good purpose. Because me alone on my own power, I'm trying to figure out how to get what I need to be okay on the inside. That's all I'm thinking about. I still to this day wake up in the morning, my eyes pop open, I'm staring at the ceiling, and it's like, how am I going to manage my life today? And so we do that fear inventory, and we do a sex inventory, and 6 and 7. I didn't understand the importance of 6 and 7 at that time, but I do now. 8 and 9. We got to 8. So we had these amends that came off of my 4th step. And he goes, I want you to break these amends up into 3 different categories, and we're going to put them on 3x5 cards. And the first category is going to be amends you're willing to make right now. And the second category is going to be amends you might be willing to make someday, but not now. And the third category is amends you are never going to make. So I put them on 3x5 cards, had 3 different piles. He said, start making the amends in the first pile. So I start going out making the amends on the first pile. He said, by the time you're halfway through the first pile, you're going to have the power to do the second pile. And that's exactly what happened. Started doing the amends in the first pile. By the time I got to the second pile, I was willing to do those right then and there. I flew here to make an amend to my junior high basketball coach, who was now coaching at my high school. Waited for him in the cafeteria, to make an amend to him. Made an amend to a college professor I had, who I put in a bad situation down at my old college. Planes, trains, and automobiles, go to any lengths. And then, sure enough, by the time I got through that second pile, I was willing to do that third pile. And then 5 years later, I'm 11 years sober. I drifted away from that work and how good that made me feel. Got back into my own will. Now I'm 11 years sober, and my life kind of falls apart again. And I'm on the ground. And the sponsor I had who took me through the book, he had passed away, and I was sponsorless. And I asked this other guy, Scott R., who you might have heard speak. He might have even spoken here. He spoke all over. Scott Redmond. And he's no longer with us, but he really introduced me to 10, 11, and 12. I remember calling him one time with the problem, right? They did this to me. And I'm launching into the problem, and he goes, Ed, he goes, if we don't talk about this from the template of the 12 steps, I'm really a pretty boring guy to talk to, because I'm just going to tell you to write about it and call me back. He just shut it down. And he taught me. It's like, don't just come at me with untreated alcoholism. Use the writing and call me with that, so we can talk about this problem you think you have from the template of the 12 steps. And he really got me into, inventory on a pretty much daily basis. And 11 and 12. And by the time, we got to 12, I had the cookbook to take other people through making a cake. Before I was trying to sponsor people, and I was like, I hadn't made the whole cake. I hadn't made the cake myself, and I'm trying to sponsor people. But this time it's like, you put in the flour, you put in the eggs. I don't have to become like a great therapist. I don't have to have the right answer. I don't have to have the right thing to say. I'm like, we're going to start at the doctor's opinion, and we're going to work our way through. That's all I have to know, is do what he did with me. So just, to kind of wrap it up here, because I'm running out of time. I don't know what I would do without this program. I have no tools for living on my own. This program has given me a life that there's no way I would have if I hadn't found you guys. And you guys taught me patiently, how to work these steps. I'm walking through something right now. I was just out in California on business, and I was talking to Gary before the meeting, and you know, I was really keyed in. He was talking about, you know, walking through stuff in the business world, you know, walking through it. And I was just out there walking through something I've never, I mean, in AA, we can do anything. And, you know, during COVID, I started doing something in my home, right? I started creating something in my home. And I knew I wanted to create it, but it was something I wanted to write. But I wasn't doing it because I just didn't have the power to do it. And I was like, I want to write this, but I can't do it. Months were going by and I couldn't do it on my own power. So I got the brilliant idea. I'm like, I hit my knees one day out of desperation. And I said, God, I'm going to turn on the computer. If you want to write something through me today, I'm going to make myself available to that. If you don't, I'm going to close up the computer and ask you tomorrow. I wrote that thing in 6 weeks. I should say I didn't write it. It got written for me in 6 weeks. So somehow, you know, it's made its way out there, and I'm walking through stuff that I have no experience with. And I'm just trying to show up, and I'm terrified. And you know, I'm 64 now, and I did way more scary stuff when I was 34. But I was 34, I was like, let's go, you know. Now I'm 64, and I'm like, I've got to meet with these people, okay, you know, I hope I don't say something stupid. And you know, I'm walking through it, and the only way I can walk through it is with, you know, if it's up to me, like, I don't want to show up, but this power is like, when I enlist it, it gives me what I need to show up, and it walks me through it. Not always perfectly, but quick story, I was like working a job in New York, and it was like the office Christmas party every night. Like the drinking that was going on in this job, and I'm in an office with 3 other guys, and they're drinking on the job, and they're, oh, this is Jack Daniel's Blue Label, and they're pouring out shots, and they're you know, and this job is going bad, right? And I'm sober and resentful. And I'm getting on the bus, and they're asking me to go out after work. They're like, hey, we're going to the restaurant across the street. Come with us. I'm like, no, I'm going home. Get a slice of pizza. I'm riding the bus across town, and I'm just stewing at these people. And finally, I hit bottom on my resentment. And I can't, like, I'm so resentful, I don't even want to go into work. I don't have the power. So it occurs to me, I better write about this. So I write it out. Who do I resent? These people at work. Why? They're a bunch of drunks. It affects my self-esteem, my pocketbook, my ambition, my personal relations, my sex relations. Okay, what are the defects that if I didn't have them, I wouldn't resent these people? Well, I'm unwilling to accept that they're spiritually sick, even though I'm spiritually sick. I'm unforgiving, I'm unpitying that they're alcoholics, even though I'm one. You know, I'm irresponsible, I'm selfish, I'm self-seeking, I'm self-centered, I'm self-deluded, I'm self-pitying, I'm a victim, I'm afraid, I don't trust God, so I play God, I'm grandiose, I'm not in the day, the list goes on. So all these character defects come out, I call my sponsor and I share them with him. And I go into work that they had stopped asking me to go out with them just because of the fumes of resentment that were coming off of me. They just stepped back. And I go into work that night, and I could literally feel them coming towards me. And I don't know what else or where else you get that kind of power. And it's not my power, but it's like that inventory literally inwardly rearranged me so that I could go into work that night and just be of service and not be a ball of resentment and fear. And they picked up on it. And I had a different experience with them that night. Otherwise, I'm just stuck in, they're a bunch of drugs, they're ruining the job. One guy quit. One guy was just like, this is nonsense, and he just quit. But I didn't want to quit. So through the steps and through a power greater than myself that you guys introduced me to, I was able to, see that job through until it was done. So I just can't thank you guys enough for the life you've given me, because I would not, I had no life before I found you guys, and I wouldn't have a life today such as it is if you guys hadn't gotten me sober through the steps of AA. And I want to thank Ron again for asking me to speak, and thank all of you for listening.
Let's give Ed another round of applause. Welcome home, everybody. My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic. That was an excellent talk. Thank you so much for coming here on your own time. We really appreciate it. The food and fellowship always starts at 8 o'clock. Come early. If you want to make this your home group, boom, you're in. I'd like to thank Howard for taking care of the kitchen tonight. Thank you, Howard. Best coffee in Bucks County. It's customary as to form a line, or our speakers come here at their own time and expense, so we usually form a line in the front here and thank them on a personal level. If you care to be of service, we give you some help putting all the chairs away. We do leave some at the tables back there, and the rest go in the closet or on the rack in the back. And I think that's it. If you care to join us, we'll close with the Lord's Prayer. We'll circle up and hold hands and say a prayer. Okay, have a brief moment of silence. Followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven,